Move, now! The entitled mom jabbed a manicured finger toward the kid, didn't even bother to look him in the eye. Anthony just clutched his boarding pass tighter. He'd earned this seat. 2 years of sacrifice for a first-class surprise for his grandpa. What she didn't know, that this boy, barely 10, understood dignity better than she ever would. Didn't know about his grandfather's lessons. Didn't see the storm brewing behind his quiet eyes. You just knew, watching him, she'd picked the wrong fight. A kindness was buried in that young soul. They have no idea how his quiet, steady compassion will utterly dismantle them. Behind her, a teenage girl stood frozen, face flushed with embarrassment, quietly pleading, "Mom, please, there's literally a seat right there." But the mother wasn't interested in other seats. She wanted that specific seat, the one currently occupied by a black boy who hadn't even looked up yet. What this entitled mom didn't know would make her regret every single word she said. What happened next made the entire airport stop and stare. Welcome to Black Triumphant Channel. Every story we share is more than just drama. It's a reminder of strength, resilience, and justice. If you believe in celebrating Black excellence and standing against injustice and prejudice, hit that like and subscribe button right now. We would like to know where you are watching from and what time is it for you right now in the comment. Flight 447 from Atlanta to Los Angeles. The first-class cabin is quiet, passengers settling into their premium seats, but Vanessa Madison isn't settling into anything. She's scanning the cabin like a predator looking for prey, and her eyes lock onto something that makes her blood boil. A young black boy sitting alone in seat 2A, the exact seat she believes her precious daughter deserves. Vanessa Madison is a Phoenix real estate mogul who's built her entire identity around getting what she wants when she wants it. Designer clothes, perfect hair, and an attitude that screams entitlement from every pore. She sees a child traveling alone, and her calculating mind immediately recognizes an opportunity. No parents means no protection. No adults means no one to stop her from intimidating this kid into giving up what she thinks belongs to her family. She takes a deep breath, smooths her designer blouse, and approaches 10-year-old Anthony Logan with the kind of fake maternal warmth that would make your skin crawl. Her voice drips with artificial sweetness as she leans down toward the boy. But first, she needs to confirm what she already suspects. "Are you traveling alone, sweetie?" she asks, scanning the area for any sign of accompanying adults. When Anthony nods innocently, that predatory smile crosses her face. Perfect. No one to interfere with what she's about to do. "Well, then I think there's been a little mix-up here. You're going to need to move from this seat." Anthony looks up from his phone, confusion written across his young face. His grandfather taught him to always respect adults. But something about this woman's tone doesn't feel right. This 10-year-old reaches into his small backpack and pulls out his boarding pass. A piece of paper that represents 24 months of sacrifice, birthday money saved, allowances hoarded, and dreams finally becoming reality. Ma'am, this is my seat. See? 2A. I bought this ticket myself, but Vanessa's smile only grows wider while her eyes grow colder. She glances back at her 14-year-old daughter, Elena, who's standing awkwardly in the aisle, clearly uncomfortable with whatever her mother is planning. And then Vanessa drops the line that will haunt her for the rest of her life. "Oh, honey, I'm sure you did your best, but my daughter here is a princess. She deserves this seat much more than you do. Princesses belong first class, don't you think?" The audacity of those words hits the cabin like a shockwave. A grown woman just told a 10-year-old boy that her daughter's imaginary royal status matters more than his legitimate boarding pass. More than the money he saved for 2 years. More than his basic human right to occupy a seat he purchased with his own hard work. Passengers within earshot freeze mid-con conversation. A businessman adjusts his glasses and stares in disbelief. An elderly woman clutches her pearls. Even the flight attendants pause their pre-flight preparations because they cannot believe what they just heard. Ananai's young mind processes what he's hearing. His grandfather's voice echoes in his memory. "Never let anyone treat you like you're less than human. Politeness doesn't mean being a doormat." But what this 10-year-old says next will shock everyone in that cabin and become the stuff of legend. His response is so perfect, So devastating that it will leave Vanessa Madison speechless and passengers applauding. But I'm not going to tell you what he said just yet because you need to hear the full story to appreciate the absolute brilliance of this child's courage. What I will tell you is that Vanessa's reaction was immediate and explosive. Her face transformed from fake sweetness to genuine rage in seconds. This entitled woman could not believe that a child, especially this child, had just challenged her authority in front of an entire first-class cabin. If you're already shocked by Vanessa's behavior and rooting for this brave 10-year-old, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will leave you absolutely speechless. Elena Madison feels her cheeks burning with embarrassment. At 14, she's old enough to recognize that her mother has just publicly humiliated their entire family. She tugs desperately at her mother's sleeve, whispering, "Mom, please, everyone's watching." But Vanessa is beyond reasoning now. Her entitled worldview has been challenged by a 10-year-old, and her ego cannot tolerate such defiance. She leans closer to Anthony, her voice taking on a threatening edge that makes nearby passengers shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Listen here, young man. I don't know where you learned such disrespect, but you clearly don't understand how the world works. Adults deserve respect from children. You will move from this seat immediately, or there will be consequences." Flight attendant Diana, a 15-year veteran who's seen every type of passenger conflict imaginable, approaches with practiced diplomacy. She's witnessed this exact scenario too many times before. Entitled passengers targeting someone they think won't fight back. "Excuse me, folks. Is there a problem here? Can I help resolve anything?" Vanessa immediately turns her fury toward Diana. "Yes, there's definitely a problem. This child is in the wrong seat and refuses to move when a paying adult asks him politely. I need you to relocate him immediately so my daughter can sit where she belongs." Diana examines both boarding passes carefully. When she sees that Anoni's ticket is completely legitimate, seat 2A, first class, properly purchased and assigned, she faces the uncomfortable task of explaining reality to an increasingly irrational passenger. "Ma'am, I've checked both tickets thoroughly, and this young man is in his correctly assigned seat. His boarding pass clearly shows 2A, and it's a valid first-class ticket with full payment confirmed." But Vanessa refuses to accept this explanation. Her manipulation tactics shift into overdrive as she adopts a wounded tone, playing the victim card with theatrical precision. "This is absolutely ridiculous. There must be some mistake with your computer system. How could a child his age possibly afford a first-class ticket? Someone obviously made an error, and I'm being punished for your airline's incompetence." Her words carry ugly implications that don't go unnoticed by the growing audience of passengers. She's suggesting that a black child couldn't legitimately possess expensive things. What would you do if you witnessed an adult bullying a child like this? Would you speak up, or would you stay silent and hope someone else intervenes? But before we reveal exactly what this brave 10-year-old said that triggered such an explosive reaction, you need to understand who these people really are. Because this isn't just a story about airplane seats. This is a story about character, dignity, and what happens when two completely different worlds collide at 35,000 FT. Now let me tell you about Anthony Logan. This isn't some spoiled rich kid throwing a tantrum. This is a boy who understands the value of every single dollar because he's watched his mother count change to buy groceries. Anthony lives with his single mother in a modest apartment in Atlanta. His mother, Patricia, works double shifts as a nurse at Grady Memorial Hospital, often pulling 16-hour days to keep their small family afloat. While other kids his age were spending their allowances on video games and candy, Anthony had a different dream. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time he found loose change in the couch cushions, it all went into what he secretly called his first-class fund. A mason jar hidden under his bed that represented something much bigger than airline seats. It represented hope, determination, and the belief that hard work could change everything. For 2 solid years, Anthony made sacrifices that would humble most adults. When his friends went to the movies, he stayed home. When the ice cream truck came through the neighborhood, he walked the other way. When his classmates bought the latest sneakers, Anthony wore them until the soles had holes. Every dollar saved was a step closer to surprising the most important man in his life. That man is Sergeant William Logan, Anthony's grandfather. A retired military man who visits from Los Angeles every Christmas, filling his grandson's head with stories about discipline, dignity, and earning your place in the world through character rather than circumstances. Anthony, his grandfather, would say, adjusting the boy's posture during their walks. Success isn't about where you start. It's about how you carry yourself when the world tries to knock you down. How you act when people treat you badly shows who you really are. The grandfather taught him about savings, about goals, about the satisfaction that comes from earning something through your own effort. Anyone can be given something, Sergeant Logan would explain, but what you earn yourself, that belongs to you forever. Nobody can take that away. So when Anthony saved enough for that first-class ticket, it wasn't about luxury. It was about proving to his grandfather that those lessons had taken root. Now let me tell you about Vanessa Madison. Vanessa grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona, in a family where money solved problems and status determined worth. Her father owned a chain of successful restaurants. Her mother organized charity galas for tax write-offs. And Vanessa learned early that the right clothes, the right connections, and the right attitude could get her whatever she wanted. She never faced real consequences for her behavior because her social circle enabled and encouraged her entitlement. When Vanessa threw tantrums as a child, her parents bought her silence with expensive gifts. When she bullied other kids at school, her mother made donations to ensure the problems disappeared. Vanessa built her real estate empire in Phoenix through a combination of inherited money, family connections, and an absolute ruthlessness toward anyone she perceived as beneath her. She's the kind of person who tips poorly and treats service workers like servants, who cuts in lines and then acts offended when called out. But here's what makes Vanessa truly dangerous. She's not just entitled, she's insecure. Behind that facade of designer clothes and aggressive confidence lies a woman who constantly needs validation that she's better than others. She uses her wealth like armor, protecting herself from ever having to question whether she's actually earned her position in life. 14-year-old Elena Madison is caught between two worlds. Unlike her mother, she's grown up with social media, viral videos of injustice, classroom discussions about equality, and a generation that calls out bad behavior instantly. She knows her mother's attitudes are wrong, but she lacks the courage and independence to challenge parental authority in public. The irony is devastating. Elena actually admires people like Anthony. She follows social media accounts that celebrate young entrepreneurs, kids who overcome obstacles, stories of people achieving dreams through hard work. Diana Santos has 15 years of experience dealing with passenger conflicts. She's Colombian-American, worked her way up from economy service to first class, and she recognizes the signs of brewing trouble like a meteorologist reading storm clouds. But something about this situation feels different. Usually when adults target kids, those children have parents nearby to protect them. But Diana notices something in Anoni's eyes, a quiet determination that suggests this boy won't be easily intimidated. Have you ever witnessed discrimination firsthand and wondered if you'd have the courage to speak up? Have you seen a child being bullied by an adult and felt that burning desire for justice? Tell me in the comments below. What would you have done if you were a passenger watching this unfold? If this story of childhood courage against adult entitlement is already inspiring you, and you want to see more viral stories about standing up to bullies and fighting discrimination, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because stories like this remind us that real character has nothing to do with money or status, and everything to do with how we treat others when we think nobody important is watching. Now here's the moment you've been waiting for. Anthony looks Vanessa Madison directly in the eyes, and with the calm confidence that his grandfather instilled in him, delivers a response that will be talked about for years. Ma'am, if she's really a princess, maybe you should buy her a private jet. The silence that follows lasts exactly 3 seconds. Then the cabin absolutely erupts. Passengers burst into spontaneous laughter and applause. A businessman in seat 1D starts clapping so hard his laptop nearly falls off his tray table. An elderly woman behind them whispers, "That's right, honey," loud enough for half the cabin to hear. But the most powerful reaction comes from something you might not expect. The sound of phones being pulled out of pockets and purses. Lisa Chong, a marketing executive from San Francisco, starts recording immediately. She knows viral content when she sees it, And this 10-year-old just delivered the kind of comeback that breaks the internet. Vanessa Madison stands there in complete shock. Her mouth opens and closes like a fish gasping for air. This child just humiliated her in front of an entire cabin of witnesses. But Vanessa's shock quickly transforms into pure, unfiltered rage. How dare you speak to me like that? Do you have any idea who I am? I am Vanessa Madison. I own half the commercial real estate in Phoenix. I make more money in a month than your family probably sees in a year. I will not be disrespected by some child who doesn't know his place. The racism in her words hits the cabin like a physical slap. She said, some child who doesn't know his place. Every passenger understands exactly what she means by his place, and the collective intake of breath is audible. Elena wants to disappear. She tugs desperately at her mother's designer sleeve, whispering with tears in her eyes, "Mom, please stop. Everyone is staring. Please just stop." But Vanessa leans closer to Anthony, invading his personal space. "Listen here, you little troublemaker. I don't know what kind of parents raised you to be so disrespectful to your betters, but you're about to learn a very important lesson about how the real world works. You will move from this seat and you will apologize to me and my daughter for your rudeness." Diana approaches with barely controlled anger at what she's witnessing. "Excuse me, ma'am. I need to address the situation immediately. Can everyone please lower their voices so we can resolve this professionally?" Vanessa whirls around. Finally, someone with sense. This child is in the wrong seat and refuses to move when asked politely. "I'm a platinum elite member of this airline, and I expect appropriate customer service." Diana goes through the motions again. "Ma'am, I've thoroughly reviewed both tickets. This young gentleman is in his correctly assigned seat 2A, first class, fully paid and properly confirmed. Your tickets show seats 23C and 23D in the main cabin. There's no error in our system." Vanessa realizes that facts aren't on her side, so she decides to attack the facts themselves. That's impossible. How could a child his age afford a first-class ticket? He's obviously using someone else's ticket, or there's been some kind of mix-up in your reservation system. I demand you check again. Anani's composure remains absolutely remarkable. "Ma'am, I saved my allowance and birthday money for 2 years to buy this ticket. I have the receipt on my phone if you want to see it. I worked hard for this, and I'm not giving it up because you think I don't deserve it." But Vanessa's next move crosses a line that will haunt her forever. She reaches toward Anthony as if she's going to physically grab him and remove him from the seat herself. "If you won't listen to reason, then maybe I need to help you understand the situation better." The threat of physical contact with a minor sends shockwaves through the cabin. Passengers who had been content to watch and record are now rising from their seats, ready to physically intervene if necessary. "Don't you touch that boy," shouts Mr. Peterson, a distinguished elderly gentleman. Lisa Chong, still recording, speaks with clear diction. "Ma'am, I'm documenting your threat to physically assault a minor. Everyone here is witnessing your behavior, and this video is going straight to social media and airline security." Derek, the second flight attendant, rushes over and immediately calls for backup on his radio. "We need assistance in first class immediately. Adult passenger making threats toward unaccompanied minor and refusing to comply with crew instructions." The cabin buzzes with tension as passengers voice their support for Anthony. "That child has more class than you ever will. He earned that seat fair and square. You should be ashamed of yourself." But the most heartbreaking moment comes when Elena finally finds her voice. Through tears of shame, she speaks words that will echo in her mother's mind forever. "Mom, you're wrong. You're so wrong. He's just a kid who saved his money, and you're trying to steal his seat because you think we're better than him. We're not better than him. Look how he's acting and look how you're acting. He's being nice and you're being mean. I'm embarrassed to be your daughter right now." Vanessa stares at her own child in shock. Elena has never challenged her authorities so directly. If you're feeling as outraged by Vanessa's behavior as these passengers were, and you want to see more stories about people standing up to discrimination and bullying, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will show you that sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected places. Vanessa decides to escalate to the ultimate authority figure. "I want to speak to the captain immediately. This is discrimination against me and my family. We're being treated unfairly while this child gets special treatment he doesn't deserve." Her twisted logic is breathtaking. She's claiming discrimination while actively discriminating against Anthony. She's demanding fair treatment while denying it to a child who did nothing wrong. Diana exchanges glances with Derek. They both know this situation has spiraled beyond their ability to manage. Ma'am, if you insist on speaking to the captain, I'll contact the cockpit. But I want to be very clear. Your behavior toward this minor passenger has been completely inappropriate. Vanessa's face lights up with vindictive satisfaction. She's convinced that the captain will validate her worldview. She has no idea that she's about to meet someone whose definition of respect and dignity will shatter her delusions completely. Have you ever been in a situation where you knew you were right, but someone with more power tried to intimidate you into backing down? Share your experiences in the comments below. The heavy cockpit door swings open with a decisive click that cuts through the chaos like a knife. When Captain James Rodriguez steps into the first-class cabin, the entire atmosphere transforms instantly. This isn't just any airline employee. This is someone who commands respect through presence alone. Picture a man who stands 6 feet tall with silver streak hair that speaks of decades of experience. His pilot's uniform is immaculate, with shoulders that carry military bearing. Captain Rodriguez possesses that rare quality of natural authority that comes from competence, confidence, and genuine leadership. 23 years of flying commercial aircraft have taught him to read situations with split-second accuracy. The moment he emerges, conversations stop mid-sentence. Phone recordings pause. Even crying babies seem to sense the gravity of this moment. Vanessa sees the captain's arrival as her moment of ultimate vindication. She immediately launches into her complaint with aggressive confidence. "Captain, thank goodness you're finally here. I've been trying to resolve this situation for nearly 45 minutes, and your crew has been completely unhelpful. This child is in the wrong seat. He's been extremely disrespectful to adults, and he refuses to move when asked politely. I need you to remove him immediately so my daughter can sit in first class where she belongs." She points dramatically at Anthony. "I'm a Platinum Elite member of this airline, Captain. I fly frequently for business. I spend thousands of dollars on tickets every year, and I have never been treated so poorly." Captain Rodriguez listens without interruption, his expression neutral and professional. When Vanessa finishes, he turns his attention to Anthony. "Son, can you tell me your side of what's happening here?" The contrast is immediately apparent. Where Vanessa demanded, the captain requests. Where she performed, he investigated. This is what real authority looks like. "Yes, sir. I bought this seat with money I saved for 2 years. I have my boarding pass right here, and I can show you the receipt on my phone if you need to see it. I'm traveling alone to visit my grandfather in Los Angeles, and I haven't done anything wrong. I've been polite to everyone, including this lady, but she wants me to give up my seat to her daughter because she says her daughter's a princess who deserves it more than I do." Captain Rodriguez requests to see both boarding passes, examining them with methodical precision. Anani's ticket is completely legitimate. Vanessa's shows economy seating. "Son, you mentioned visiting your grandfather. Can you tell me more about your trip?" The boy's face lights up as he pulls out his phone to show a family photo. "This is my grandpa, Captain. His name is Sergeant William Logan, and he's retired military. He always told me that hard work pays off and that you should never let anyone treat you like you're less than human. I wanted to surprise him by flying first class, like successful people do." The photo shows a distinguished elderly black man in military uniform standing proudly next to Anthony. This isn't a random story. This is a real family connection with deep meaning. Captain Rodriguez studies the photo carefully, and something in his expression shifts slightly. Perhaps he recognizes the grandfather's bearing and understands the kind of man who would raise a grandson with such dignity. Meanwhile, Vanessa grows impatient. "Captain, I appreciate you being thorough, but this is really quite simple. The child clearly doesn't belong in first class, and my daughter needs that seat." Her words carry ugly assumptions about who belongs were based on factors other than their tickets. Captain Rodriguez has been watching not just what people say, but how they say it. He's observed Anani's consistent politeness under pressure and Vanessa's escalating aggression. Most importantly, he's witnessed a young person standing up for what's right in the face of adult intimidation. "Ma'am, I've heard your concerns and I've examined all the relevant documentation. Now I need to address the situation with the complete picture. If stories about real leadership and standing up for what's right inspire you as much as they inspire me, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell, because what Captain Rodriguez says next will deliver the kind of justice that restores your faith in humanity. Captain Rodriguez turns to face all the passengers in first class. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take a moment to discuss something important about how we operate this aircraft and treat our fellow passengers, because it's crucial that everyone understands the values we uphold at 35,000 feet. Vanessa's smirk grows wider. She's certain this official discussion will vindicate her position. Her body language radiates confidence as she glances at Anthony with an expression that clearly says, "You're about to learn how the real world works." The tension in that cabin is absolutely electric. Every passenger leans forward, sensing they're about to witness something that will be remembered for years. Captain Rodriguez's expression grows more serious as he prepares to deliver his verdict. Have you ever been in a situation where someone in authority had to choose between doing what was easy and doing what was right? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this captain is about to demonstrate exactly what principled leadership looks like. Captain Rodriguez's voice cuts through the tension like a blade, his words carrying absolute authority and unwavering moral conviction. "Ma'am, you're absolutely right about one thing. A princess probably does deserve her own private jet. But this seat belongs to him." The captain's finger points directly at Anthony. "And if you lay a hand on him again, you'll be the one leaving this aircraft, escorted by security." The words hit Vanessa like a physical blow. Her mouth drops open in complete shock. This wasn't supposed to happen. The first-class cabin erupts in thunderous applause that seems to shake the aircraft. Passengers release their tension in waves of clapping and cheering that validates everything decent people believe about fairness and justice. "Yes," shouts Mr. Peterson. "That's what I'm talking about," calls out Lisa Chong. Finally, some real leadership, adds another passenger, tears streaming down her face. Captain Rodriguez isn't finished. "Ma'am, let me be crystal clear about how we operate on this flight. Every passenger who boards this aircraft with a valid ticket deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their age, race, or any other factor." This young man purchased his seat legitimately. He's conducted himself with remarkable grace under pressure, and he will remain exactly where he belongs. Vanessa stands frozen, speechless for the first time. Her carefully constructed narrative has collapsed completely. You and your daughter will return to your assigned seats in the economy section immediately. This young man will remain in the seat he purchased with his own money earned through his own hard work and sacrifice. The walk of shame begins. Vanessa, her face burning with humiliation, slowly turns away and begins the longest journey of her life. The walk from first class to economy, while every passenger watches her retreat in complete defeat. Elena follows behind, her head down, shoulders slumped with the weight of shame as they make their way toward the back. Passengers in first class surround Anthony with congratulations. "Young man, you handled that with more class than most grown-ups would have shown," says Mrs. Patterson. "That was absolutely incredible," adds Lisa Chong. "You stood up for yourself without ever losing your dignity." But the most meaningful moment comes when Captain Rodriguez kneels beside Anoni's seat, bringing himself to the boy's eye level. "Son, I want you to know something important. First class suits you, not because of the seat you're sitting in, but because of the character you've shown today. That kind of dignity and courage under pressure. That's what real first class looks like." Anoni's eyes welled up with tears of relief and validation. "Thank you, Captain. My grandfather always told me to stand up for what's right, even when it's scary. I was really scared, but I remembered what he taught me. Your grandfather sounds like a wise man who raised a grandson he can be very proud of. You honored his teachings today, and you honored yourself." In an unexpected turn, Elena separates from her mother and approaches Anoni's seat. "Excuse me," she says quietly, filled with genuine remorse. "I'm really sorry about my mom. What she did was completely wrong, and I'm embarrassed and ashamed that she's my mother. You didn't deserve any of that treatment." Anthony looks up at this teenager, struggling with her own family dynamics, and his response shows the same grace he's displayed throughout. "It's okay. You're not responsible for what she did. You seem really nice, and I can tell you didn't agree with her. Can I ask you something? How did you stay so calm through all of that? Ani's answer reveals the foundation of his strength. My grandfather taught me that how you act when people treat you badly shows who you really are inside. I didn't want to prove her right by acting up or being disrespectful. I wanted to show that I deserve to be here. If this incredible story of courage, justice, and standing up for what's right has moved you as much as it moved everyone on Flight 447, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell right now. Because stories like this remind us why character matters more than status, why dignity trumps entitlement, and why sometimes the smallest voices deliver the most powerful messages about justice and human decency. Meanwhile, at the back of the plane, Vanessa settles into her economy seat with a bitter taste of complete defeat. Every passenger who walks past remembers her as the woman who tried to bully a child and got completely destroyed by the captain's moral authority. Her phone buzzes incessantly with notifications. The videos of her confrontation are already making their way onto social media. The hashtags Chapter First Class Kid and Current Arsh Vanessa Madison meltdown is beginning to trend. Her reputation, her business relationships, her social standing. Everything is about to change dramatically because of her decision to target a 10-year-old boy. Back in first class, Anthony finally allows himself to truly relax. He pulls out his phone and takes a quiet selfie. Not a boastful victory photo, but a genuine smile of satisfaction, relief, and quiet pride. He types a message to his mother. "Mom, you won't believe what just happened on this flight. I'll tell you everything when I land, but I used everything Grandpa taught me about dignity and respect, and it worked. A mean lady tried to make me give up my seat, but I stood up for myself politely, and the captain supported me. I think Grandpa would be really proud." Then he takes a photo out the window and sends it to his grandfather. "Grandpa, I'm coming to see you in first class, just like we talked about, and I've got some amazing stories to tell you about standing up for myself and remembering everything you taught me about character and dignity." Captain Rodriguez returns to the cockpit, but not before giving Anthony one final nod of respect. In his 23 years of flying, he's witnessed many confrontations, but few have demonstrated such a clear distinction between right and wrong, between character and entitlement, between real class and artificial status. As Flight 447 prepares for takeoff, passengers share their thoughts about what they've witnessed. Some are already posting about the experience on social media, ensuring that this story will reach audiences far beyond this single flight. The story spreads like wildfire across social platforms. Watch the First Class Kid becomes a symbol of dignity in the face of discrimination. Videos of the confrontation rack up millions of views. Anthony becomes an overnight sensation, celebrated for his poise and courage. But more importantly, the story becomes a teaching moment about character, about the difference between earned respect and assumed entitlement, about the courage it takes to stand up for yourself when authority figures try to intimidate you. Anthony settles back into his window seat, watching the ground crew prepare for takeoff. His dignity is intact, his dreams are validated, and his faith in justice has been restored. The leather seat that Vanessa Madison tried to claim through intimidation and prejudice remains his earned through sacrifice, defended through courage, and validated through the support of decent people who recognized right from wrong. As the plane begins to taxi toward the runway, Anoni's small victory smile reflects something much larger than a seating dispute. It reflects the triumph of character over prejudice, of earned respect over assumed entitlement, of a child's moral courage over an adult's cowardice and bigotry. The engines roar to life, and Flight 447 lifts off into the sky, carrying with it a story that will be told and retold, shared and remembered as a perfect example of what happens when good people stand up for what's right. When authority figures choose justice over convenience, and when children show adults what real dignity looks like. The lesson from Flight 447 is simple but profound. Respect costs nothing to give, but when denied, it can cost you everything. That day, a 10-year-old boy stood his ground with quiet dignity and taught a grown woman that real class has nothing to do with where you sit. It has everything to do with how you treat other people, especially when you think nobody important is watching. But everyone was watching. Everyone was recording, and everyone remembered. Anthony Logan's lesson in dignity became a lesson for all of us about the courage it takes to stand up for what's right. No matter how young you are, no matter how intimidating the opposition might seem, and no matter how much easier it would be to just give in and avoid conflict, as the plane disappears into the clouds, carrying Anthony toward his reunion with his grandfather, his story remains with us. A powerful reminder that sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages about justice, respect, and the true meaning of first-class character that transcends any airline seat or social status. What would you have done if you were a passenger witnessing Vanessa's shameful behavior toward Anthony? Have you ever had to stand up for yourself or someone else in a situation where it felt scary but absolutely necessary? Share your experiences in the comments below, because stories like this remind us that courage comes in all sizes, and that doing the right thing is always worth it, no matter how difficult it might seem at the moment. The lesson from Flight 447 is simple but profound. Respect costs nothing to give, but when denied, it can cost you everything. That day, a 10-year-old boy stood his ground with quiet dignity and taught a grown woman that real class has nothing to do with where you sit. It has everything to do with how you treat other people, especially when you think nobody important is watching, but everyone was watching, everyone was recording, and everyone remembered. Within hours of landing, the videos from Flight 447 began spreading across every social media platform imaginable. Lisa Chang's recording, which captured the entire confrontation from Vanessa's initial approach to the captain's devastating response, became the most shared video of the week. The hashtag #TrueWormFirstClassKid trended globally as millions of people watched a 10-year-old demonstrate more grace under pressure than most adults ever will. The comment sections told their own story. Thousands of people shared their own experiences of discrimination, their moments of standing up to bullies, their regrets about times they stayed silent when they should have spoken up. Teachers used the video in classrooms to discuss dignity, respect, and moral courage. Parents showed it to their children as an example of how to handle difficult situations with grace. But the story didn't end when the plane landed in Los Angeles. When Anthony walked through that terminal, his phone buzzing with notifications he didn't yet understand. He had no idea that his grandfather was about to receive the surprise of a lifetime. Sergeant William Logan was waiting at the gate, expecting to see his grandson emerge from the economy section as usual. Instead, he watched in amazement as Anthony walked confidently through the first-class jetway, carrying himself with a new sense of pride and accomplishment. "Grandpa," Anthony called out, running toward the distinguished elderly man in his crisp civilian clothes. The reunion was everything the boy had dreamed it would be, but now he had so much more to share than just the fact that he'd saved enough for first class. As they drove through Los Angeles traffic toward his grandfather's modest but well-kept home, Anthony recounted every detail of the flight. Sergeant Logan listened with growing pride and occasional chuckles at his grandson's quick wit. When Anthony reached the part about the private jet comeback, the old soldier laughed so hard he had to pull over. "Boy, you really said that to a grown woman?" he asked, wiping tears from his eyes. "Yes, sir. I remembered what you taught me about never letting anyone make you feel small, and I just said what I was thinking. Son, your grandmother would have been so proud of you today. She always said the measure of a person isn't in how they act when things are easy, but how they carry themselves when someone tries to knock them down. You honored her memory in everything I tried to teach you." Meanwhile, back in Phoenix, Vanessa Madison was discovering the true cost of her behavior. The viral videos had been viewed millions of times, and internet detectives had quickly identified her real estate company. By Monday morning, her business phone was ringing nonstop, not with new clients, but with existing ones canceling contracts. Partners were distancing themselves. The Arizona Real Estate Association was launching an ethics investigation. Her carefully built empire was crumbling because she couldn't accept that a young black boy belonged in first class. Local news stations picked up the story. "Phoenix Realtors' racist meltdown on flight goes viral," read the headlines. Vanessa's photo was everywhere, but not in the way she'd always imagined. Instead of being featured as a successful businesswoman, She was becoming the face of entitled racism and adult bullying. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who knew her story. Vanessa, who had spent her entire life trying to prove she was better than others, had ultimately proven the opposite. Her public humiliation was complete, and it was entirely self-inflicted. But perhaps the most telling response came from her own daughter. Elena Madison, the teenager who had been mortified by her mother's behavior, became an unexpected voice for change. In a post that went viral in its own right, she wrote, "That was my mom on the plane. I'm 14 years old and I was embarrassed and ashamed of how she acted. Anthony didn't deserve any of that treatment. He was polite, respectful, and showed more maturity than my mother did. I've learned that being related to someone doesn't mean you have to agree with their actions. What my mom did was wrong, and I hope this serves as a lesson that racism and bullying are never okay, no matter who you are or how much money you have." Elena's post garnered hundreds of thousands of likes and shares, with people praising her courage in speaking out against her own mother's behavior. It became a powerful example of how the next generation can learn from the mistakes of their elders and choose a different path. Back in Los Angeles, Anthony was experiencing his own kind of viral fame, but in the best possible way. People were reaching out to share their own stories of overcoming obstacles, of standing up to bullies, of achieving dreams through hard work and determination. A scholarship fund was established in his name to help other children from modest backgrounds experience opportunities they might not otherwise have. The airline industry took notice too. The captain who defended Anthony, James Rodriguez, was featured in training videos about de-escalation and passenger rights. His response became a textbook example of principled leadership under pressure. Flight attendant Diana Santos was promoted and became a spokesperson for the airline's commitment to treating all passengers with dignity and respect. But perhaps the most meaningful outcome was the conversation the story sparked about class, race, and respect in America. Sociologists analyzed the incident as a perfect example of how prejudice and entitlement can blind people to basic human decency. Child psychologists used Anthony's response as a case study in resilience and moral courage. Business schools examined Vanessa's downfall as a cautionary tale about how personal values ultimately determine professional success. The story became bigger than just one confrontation on one flight. It became a symbol of hope that dignity and character can triumph over prejudice and entitlement, that sometimes the most powerful responses come from the most unexpected sources, and that a child's courage can teach adults lessons they desperately need to learn. Anthony Logan's lesson in dignity became a lesson for all of us about the courage it takes to stand up for what's right. No matter how young you are, no matter how intimidating the opposition might seem, and no matter how much easier it would be to just give in and avoid conflict, as that plane disappeared into the clouds months ago, carrying Anthony toward his reunion with his grandfather, his story remains with us, a powerful reminder that sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages about justice, respect, and the true meaning of first-class character that transcends any airline seat or social status. And somewhere in Los Angeles, a 10-year-old boy who saved his allowance for 2 years to surprise his grandfather continues to live by the values that made him a hero to millions. Work hard, treat others with respect, and never let anyone convince you that you don't belong exactly where you've earned the right to be. Flight 447 case study examined how decades of built reputation can be destroyed in minutes when someone reveals their true character under pressure. But perhaps the most profound impact has been on young people across the country. Anthony's story has inspired countless children to stand up to bullies, to believe in their own worth, regardless of their circumstances, to understand that dignity is not given by others, but claimed through character. School counselors report that when children face discrimination or bullying, they often ask themselves, what would Anthony do? The question has become more than just a reference to a viral moment. It's become a moral compass for an entire generation, learning to navigate a complex world where character and courage can triumph over prejudice and hatred. 3 years later, Anthony Logan remains that same quiet, determined boy who saves his money and respects his elders. He hasn't let fame change him, hasn't let the attention go to his head. When reporters occasionally reach out for updates, he politely declines most interviews, preferring to let his actions speak louder than his words. But in those rare moments when he does speak publicly, his message remains consistent. I didn't do anything special that day. I just remembered what my grandfather taught me about treating people with respect and standing up for what's right. Anyone can do that. And that perhaps is the most powerful part of his legacy. Anthony Logan didn't become a hero because he was extraordinary. He became extraordinary because he chose to do what was right when it mattered most. He proved that heroism isn't about having superpowers or special abilities. It's about having the courage to stand firm in your principles when the world tries to shake your foundation. Today, somewhere in Atlanta, a 13-year-old boy is probably doing his homework, helping his mother around the house, and saving money for his next goal. He carries himself with quiet confidence, not because he's famous, but because he knows who he is and what he stands for. The real measure of Anthony Logan's impact won't be found in view counts or social media metrics. It will be found in the countless children who stand a little taller because they saw someone like them refuse to be diminished. It will be found in the adults who remember his example when they're tempted to stay silent in the face of injustice. It will be found in a world that learned, if only for a moment, to see first-class character for what it really is. The story of Flight 447 reminds us that sometimes the most important moments in our lives happen when we're just trying to get where we're going. Sometimes courage looks like a 10-year-old boy with a boarding pass and a dream. And sometimes the most powerful response to hatred and prejudice is simply refusing to let it make you smaller than you are. That's the legacy of Anthony Logan. That's the lesson of Flight 447. And that's why his story will continue to inspire long after the last video has been watched and the last article has been written. Because some stories aren't just entertainment, they're reminders of who we can choose to be when it matters most. Vanessa herself has largely disappeared from public view. Some reports suggest she moved to a small town in rural Arizona, working a modest job far from the real estate empire she once commanded. Those who knew her say the experience fundamentally changed her, though whether for better or worse remains unclear. She has never publicly apologized for her behavior that day, and attempts to reach her for comment on the ongoing impact of her actions have been unsuccessful. Her daughter Elena, however, has become a powerful voice for change. Now a college freshman studying social justice, she speaks regularly at high schools about the importance of standing up to prejudice, even when it comes from people you love. Her speeches are raw, honest, and deeply personal. I love my mother, she tells audiences. But loving someone doesn't mean staying silent when they're wrong. That day on the plane, I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's worst behavior, even if it costs you the relationship. Elena's courage in speaking out against her own mother's actions has inspired countless young people to examine their own families and communities, to question inherited prejudices, and to choose a different path than the one they were raised on. The ripple effects continue to spread in unexpected ways. Teachers report using the Flight 447 story in lessons about character education, civil rights, and standing up to bullying. Child psychologists reference Anoni's response as an example of healthy coping mechanisms when facing discrimination. Business schools analyze Vanessa's downfall as a case study in how personal character ultimately determines professional success. But perhaps most importantly, the story has become a touchstone for conversations about race, class, and respect in America. It's used in diversity training programs, community dialogue sessions, and family discussions about how to raise children who see people as individuals rather than stereotypes. The incident sparked a broader conversation about first-class character. The idea that true class has nothing to do with wealth or status and everything to do with how we treat others, especially those who can't fight back. The phrase has entered common usage with people asking themselves, am I showing first-class character right now? And somewhere in all of this ongoing impact, Anthony Logan continues to live his life with the same quiet dignity that made him famous. He's still that thoughtful boy who saves his money, respects his elders, and treats everyone with kindness. The only difference is that now he knows beyond any doubt that his character is his greatest possession, and unlike material things, it's something no one can ever take away from him. The legacy of Flight 447 lives on, not just in viral videos or museum exhibits, but in the daily choices millions of people make to treat each other with dignity and respect. It's a reminder that sometimes the most important battles for justice happen not in courtrooms or at protests, but in airplane cabins, classrooms, and everyday interactions where we choose to see each other's humanity. That's the true power of Anthony Logan's story. It proves that any of us at any age in any situation can choose to be the person who stands up for what's right. We can all choose to embody first-class character, regardless of where we're sitting. Thank you for watching Black and Bruised Stories. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you why character matters more than status, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like Anani's don't just entertain us, they change us. And in a world that sometimes feels divided by differences, we need more reminders of what brings out the best in humanity. What's the most powerful lesson from this incredible story? Is it that arrogance and prejudice always backfire? That calm dignity is more powerful than anger? That justice has a way of revealing itself at the perfect moment? Or something else entirely? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us about a time when you witnessed or experienced your own moment of poetic justice. These stories matter, and I read every single comment because your experiences help us all learn and grow.